It's the first day of August here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with South Korea's gold in the men's sabre fencing team event. The men's sabre fencing team managed to stay on top of the podium after snatching its third consecutive Olympic gold medal. And at least a silver medal in the badminton mixed doubles is on the way, with the semifinals set up to be an all-Korea match. The U.S. Federal Reserve went ahead with another key interest rate freeze for the 8th straight time on Wednesday. Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinted a widely anticipated rate cut in September is on the table. The Middle East is on edge after Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in a strike in Iranian city Tehran on Wednesday. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has issued an order for Iran to strike Israel directly, while Israel has neither denied nor taken responsibility for the death. South Korea added its sixth gold medal at the Paris Games on Wednesday, finishing at the top of this podium in the men's team sabre fencing competition. And another podium finish can be expected in badminton mixed doubles, as an all-South Korean semifinal is set in the game. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The goal of winning 5 gold medals in Paris has now been surpassed. The South Korean men's sabre fencing team on Wednesday continued its dominance by winning its third straight Olympic gold. The team ranked number 1 in the world of Park Sang-won, Koo Bong-gil, Oh Sang-wook, and Do Kyung-dong defeated Hungary 45-41 to place themselves at the top of the podium. 34-year-old Koo has been on all 3 gold medal winning teams, while Park and Do are competing in their first Olympic Games. Oh, who also won the men's individual sabre gold on Saturday, became the first South Korean fencer to win 2 gold medals at a single Olympic Games. Meanwhile, South Korea has secured at least a silver medal finish in the badminton mixed doubles after an all-South Korean semifinal matchup has been set. Seo Seung-jae and Chae Yu-jung advanced to the semifinals after defeating the mixed duo from Hong Kong, while Kim Won-ho and Chung Na-eun also cruised through to the semis after defeating their opponents from Malaysia. This means that South Korea will be able to finish with at least a silver medal and win its first mixed doubles medal since Lee Yong-dae and Lee Hyo-jung at the 2008 Beijing Summer Games. In the women's singles, world number 1 An Se-young cruised through to the quarterfinals after beating Chi Shu-fei of France in straight sets 2-0 in her final Group A match. An has battled through some injuries over the past year, but is now the favorite to win gold. With South Korea adding a gold medal on Wednesday, they're now in 6th place in the overall medal standings, with a total of 6 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze medals. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Israel's back-to-back assassinations in the Middle East have made the regional situation increasingly uncertain, with Iran officially declaring its intention to retaliate against Israel. Fears of a wider conflict in the Middle East are growing. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
The Iranian Supreme Leader has ordered a retaliation attack in Israel for the killing of a top Hamas leader in Iran's capital, Tehran. The New York Times reported on Wednesday that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed revenge during an emergency national security meeting. It added that Khamenei, who's also the country's highest military commander, instructed that a defense scenario be prepared in case Israel or the U.S. attacks Iran. Ismail Haniyeh, the political chief of Hamas, was in Tehran attending the inauguration of Iran's new president. After Haniyeh's assassination on Wednesday, Khamenei stated that our guest has been martyred and that it is Iran's duty to exact a blood price. The New York Times reported that Iran is also considering simultaneous attacks from Yemen, Syria, and Iraq to maximize the impact of the retaliation. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards issued an unusual 2 statements on the same matter, condemning the assassination in the strongest words. Iran's allies and proxy groups against Israel also denounced the assassination. Hamas stated that it will not stand by and watch what it called Israel's cowardly actions, while Yemen's Houthi rebels said the Haniyeh's assassination is a terrorist crime. Hezbollah also declared that the resistance of anti-Israel alliances would become even stronger. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, the U.S. White House stated it is taking special care to prevent escalation, denying that a larger conflict is imminent. The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have also not issued any statements on the situation so far. Huw, Arirang News.
Additional U.S. semiconductor control measures against China may prohibit South Korean chipmakers such as Samsung and SK Hynix from supplying high-bandwidth memory to Chinese companies. In a report by Bloomberg on Wednesday, the move that could be announced as early as next month would prevent chipmakers, including US's Micron, from selling chips that are essential in running complex generative AI programs. However, the report, which cited anonymous sources, says no final decision has been made so far. The new measures include HBM2, HBM3, and HBM3E, as well as the equipment used to make these chips. The 3 companies currently dominate the global HBM market. The U.S. Federal Reserve kept its key interest rate steady for the 8th consecutive time on Wednesday, but this time with a clearer signal that a long-awaited rate cut may be just weeks away. For more, let's turn to Professor Shin Se-dong this morning. It's great to have you back, Professor Shin.
Good morning.
There is a growing confidence that the U.S. Fed will go ahead with a rate cut in September, which is next month. Now, if a rate cut does happen next month, is Fed taking a big step, half a percentage point rate cut, a possible scenario, or a quarter percentage point? What do you think?
Well, before talking about that, we got to be sure that, September rate cut, no matter how, big it is, it's not a certain thing. In other words, we should not believe 100% that there will be a rate cut in September. So it is still open, okay? It is a still open possibility there's going to be another no change in the rate cut in September. That only depends upon the economic data like inflation and unemployment rate. Mm-hmm. And now, saying that, if the rate cut is in September, I think it's going to be 25 basis points rather than either 50 or 75 as something in the market expects. So to me, okay, we have to wait. We have to wait until the economic data first, and the second, if there is a rate cut in September, it's going to be almost 100%, 25 basis points.
Right, the market is quite excited about a rate cut in September, but like you said, we do have one more month to go and analyze those economic data. Now, how big of a deal is a quarter percentage point rate cut? I mean, how much impact will it bring to the U.S. economy and even to the global economy?
Well, we've been expecting a rate cut since the end of last year. We've been waiting for at least one rate cut during the early, but it has disappointed. So we are at the month of August now. So already in the market, the expected 25 basis point rate cut is already priced in the market prices like stock prices. So if there is a rate cut in 25 basis point in September, that would not have a great impact upon either United States or global economy. A more important thing is how long the rate cut will continue down the road. Whether they stop at 25 basis point or they continue to lower that to, let's say, 4.5 or 4.25. So from now on, the more important thing is how long the rate cut could continue when it started in September.
Well, that's exactly in line with what some market analysts are expecting, that the Fed will cut rates in a speedy manner, now even slashing the rate as much as 1.75 percentage points by September next year. Now, do you think this is a reliable projection?
No, this is a totally nonsense. It is totally nonsense in the sense that, the market has been expecting rate cut even the late 2023, and they were wrong, right? So we got to be pretty clear that even though the Fed started to lower the rate in September, the pace of, lowering the rate cut is going to be very steady and very tedious, because we have to remember that, inflation, the so-called personal consumption expenditure, price index, which is the core kind of target of a Federal Reserve, that is still, 2.6%, way above 2.0, and it doesn't coming down. So we have to remember that inflation has been coming down very rapidly from over 5% to 2.6% now, but the pace of downfall in inflation is very slow. So and the Federal Reserve is recognizing the fact, so that that's why the Federal Reserve Chair commented yesterday that somewhat inflation is has been coming down, but still very slow. So we got to remember that I think the process of lowering the rate from probably September is going to take more than a year or possibly 6 quarters. So we should not expect the rate cut will be very dramatic, like 50 basis point or even 100 basis point. I think it is totally nonsense.
Well, Professor Shin, 2024 presidential candidate Donald Trump has long warned the Fed, not to cut rates before the election in November. The Fed said its decision will be apolitical, but wouldn't that put a good amount of pressure on the Fed chair?
Well, that is kind of political, because there's a election in November. So the real meaning of Trump's comment about no rate cut is a political one, and nobody is listening to him, and nobody is expecting the Fed will really listen to it. So it's just kind of a political rhetoric that we should not be concerned about.
All right, Professor Shin, thank you so much for your insights and your time this morning. We appreciate it as always.
My pleasure, always.
Now, on to the prolonged medical dispute here in the country. The deadline for recruiting nearly 7,700 trainee doctors for the year's second half ended with a very few applications. In fact, the Big Five hospitals here in Seoul reported a single-digit number of applicants. Shin reports.
Recruitment for trainee doctors at 126 hospitals nationwide ended on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Since Monday last week, hospitals have been recruiting for 7,645 trainee doctor positions for programs starting in September. Although the government offered disciplinary exemptions for returning junior doctors, very few have applied. These included an exemption from the rule prohibiting residents who resign during their training period from returning to the same position within a year. However, the medical community has largely ignored the recruitment efforts, with some medical professors planning to boycott training programs for junior doctors and calling for the government to scrap its medical reform plan before any negotiations. Health Minister Cho Kyung said on Tuesday that the government is aware of the low application numbers, but reiterated that no additional measures would be taken to encourage returns. The number of applicants to the country's 5 major training hospitals is very low. Some have had no applicants at all, while others, such as Seoul National University Hospital and Samsung Medical Center, had only a few ahead of the deadline. Before the recruitment ended, an official from one of the hospitals said that it was uncertain if the number would even exceed single digits. Amid this situation, resident doctors who have not returned are seeking jobs at private clinics, resulting in a decrease in salaries as more people compete for limited positions. Meanwhile, the Korean Medical Association announced on Wednesday that it has formed a task force to help non-returning resident doctors who are struggling to find jobs. It will connect these residents with private clinics and create a standard contract after determining a salary range that both residents and private clinics can agree on. 신하영, Arirang News.
North Korean drones have been a major security concern for the South in recent years. To better respond to these threats, the country has developed new laser weapons to intercept these drones. Our Paeunji visited this weapons test site.
A drone catches fire and crashes into the sea. It was intercepted by a laser emitted by South Korea's newly developed high-energy laser weapon, about a kilometer away from the drone. At this testing center, South Korea has been developing these laser weapons to shoot down drones. It plans to start deploying and operating them by the end of this year. It has taken 5 years and cost around $63 million for South Korea to develop the new weapon, aimed at detecting and destroying small unmanned vehicles. Laser weapons are not only quiet and invisible, but they only need electricity to operate, making them cheap, costing less than $2 per shot. South Korea is expected to become the first country in the world to officially deploy and operate laser weapons.
We have successfully completed the research and development of an advanced laser weapon. By deploying the weapon in the near future, we will work to become a leading nation in this field.
Seoul's decision to develop and deploy laser weapons comes after Pyongyang's drone provocations in recent years. In 2014, North Korean drones equipped with digital cameras were discovered after crashing near the border in Paju City and Baekneungdo Island. Then in 2020, 5 drones from the north flew across the border and breached South Korean airspace, sounding an alarm over the security threats posed by unmanned vehicles. The laser weapon is designed to shoot down small drones for now, but the country plans to develop it in the future so that it can emit more powerful beams, strong enough to counter aircraft and ballistic missiles. Paeunji, Arirang News, Tehran.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and this is The World Now. We begin today in the UK, where thousands of protesters gathered in London on Wednesday for a second night of demonstrations following the deaths of 3 young girls in a knife attack at a dance class in Southport on Monday. Protesters clashed with police near Downing Street and threw flares and smoke canisters towards number 10 before riot police formed a barrier. Dozens were arrested at the scene. The second night of protests follows Tuesday's outbreak of violent demonstrations in Southport, a seaside town in the northwest where the killings took place. Tuesday's protest began as a peaceful vigil with over 1,000 people before a group began to gather near a mosque 2 streets away from the murder scene after hearing rumors that the 17-year-old suspect was an asylum seeker. The protesters, some believed to be far-right English Defence League supporters, attacked the mosque and police in riot gear with bricks from garden walls, bottles and fireworks, injuring 53 police officers and leaving the mosque damaged. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said they had insulted the community and would feel the full force of the law. Guinea's criminal court on Wednesday sentenced former junta leader Moussa Dadis Camara to 20 years in prison after finding him guilty of crimes against humanity for the deaths of at least 157 people and rape of dozens of women in the country's 2009 stadium massacre. The Guinea court convicted Camara and 7 other high-ranking officials after a prolonged trial. 4 others were acquitted. Now 60-year-old Camara seized power over the country in a military coup d'etat in December 2008 following the deaths of longtime President Lansana Conté. A year later, in September 2009, mass protests took place against his regime in Guinea's capital, Conakry, demanding Camara to step down. Witnesses from 2009 said that demonstrators gathered at the stadium to protest when Camara soldiers opened fire, shooting, crushing and knifing some 160 people to death, while some of the women were gang raped by uniformed men over several days. A civil society activist, Mamadou Kali Diallo, said that the people of Guinea hope that this will be a good beginning for the fight against judicial impunity in governance in the Republic of Guinea. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro says that his Socialist Party is prepared to present all vote tallies from Sunday's election. Maduro has also said that he requested the country's top court to ensure all other political parties in Venezuela do the same. Maduro also claimed that the attorney's office should call all political parties and their candidates to testify in an investigation related to alleged election interference, such as cyber attacks, attacks on polling stations, and the offices of the National Electoral Council. Maduro's re-election has been under scrutiny for lack of transparency by the international community, including the majority of Latin American countries, to the extent of hindering their diplomatic ties. Nicolas Maduro, who has ruled Venezuela for a quarter century, claimed he'd won a third term with 51% of the vote on Sunday, while independent exit polls showed a big opposition win. Former BBC TV news presenter Huw Edwards pleaded guilty on Wednesday to 3 counts of making indecent pictures of children. London's Westminster Magistrates Court was told that the 62-year-old Edwards, who had been BBC's highest-paid top news anchor for decades, was sent 377 sexual images, of which 41 were indecent images of children, through mobile messenger WhatsApp between December 2020 and August 2021 by an individual the police said was a convicted paedophile. Edwards is scheduled to be sentenced on September 16th. He resigned from the BBC in April.
Good morning. Korea is enduring searing heat with heat wave warnings in most places. The government has raised the heat wave crisis alert level to its highest serious level as of yesterday. Meanwhile, Gangneung had the warmest temperatures of the season on Wednesday and will see highs topping out at 36 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Today will be as bright as yesterday, except in northern parts of the country with more cloud coverage and a chance of showers. 5 to 10 millimeters of light rain is in the forecast, so have a small umbrella handy. Most of Korea had a tropical night with overnight temperatures exceeding 25 degrees Celsius, but feeling closer to 30 degrees. It will be as hot as yesterday. Seoul gets up to 33 degrees, even Busan topping out at 32 degrees with very strong UV rays in the port city. Southern parts of the country could see occasional passing showers over the next 2 days, while sweltering heat continues day and night for the time being. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.